Welcome back to the Hurling Debate here on Balls.ie in association with Centra, who are sponsors of the GAA All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. My name is Shane Stapleton. With me this evening I have Balls.ie editor Mick McCarthy, and also I'm delighted to say we've got ex-Waterford hurler, and I think everyone kind of had a soft spot for him and the way he hurled, Paul Flynn. Paul, delighted to have you.
Thanks, Shane. Nice to be here.
You can actually keep up on the conversation on Periscope and also on Facebook with hashtag #WeAreHurling, and to be in with a chance to win 2 tickets to Cork versus Waterford in the All-Ireland semi-final this weekend. Tag the name of the friend that you'd like to take along, and later on in the show we'll be announcing the winner. So Paul, first of all, delighted to have you here. Can you tell us what's the hype like in Waterford at the moment? And you know, you've played in a lot of All-Ireland semi-finals from '98 up until as far as 2008. So what's the comparison?
Well, we have, I suppose, over the last decade or so, Waterford have become a little bit more used to being in semi-finals and quarter-finals compared to back in the day when we were trying to reach this stage on a yearly basis without much success. So, it's teams play each other so often nowadays that it's the players are, familiarity is probably there, but the excitement among people, Waterford still have to. We'd have one final since 1959, and we know that didn't go too well. So to get back there, first of all, would be massive. And, having lost to Cork in the first round of the championship this year, the Waterford people are, I suppose, expecting a better performance. And only judging by the score on the last day, a lot of Waterford people would think that if we come up a gear or two, that we're more than capable of getting to this final. So from that point of view, the team are in their little bubble, they're training away, the preparation is going well, apart from the obvious one with Tig. And, Waterford people are just quietly, it's a little bit quieter than normal, I would think, but externally then, I suppose, when people are talking to each other, they will let themselves go. But collectively, I think the Waterford people are expecting a better performance, and they're afraid to talk publicly about it.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense to you.
It does, but it's all over the media, basically. Do you think that's hard to hide from as players? Was it for you?
Well, I won't say back in the day again, but it must be very tough on the lads playing nowadays with the amount of media, obviously the mainstream stuff and social stuff, and then you have the keyboard warriors who are faceless behind it all, who might hurt your feelings more so than anybody, and they never pull the togs above their knees. So
they might be having a pop at you right now.
Well, that's fine, and they will, and that's great, and that's good. But that's the way it is, and It is hard to hide, there's no question about it, but I think nowadays people are well aware of who to put in front of a camera and who not, and if you look at the Waterford situation, it's more often the management team than any of the players, and then if it is the players, there's 1 or 2 players kind of offered up, so it's a tightly controlled situation, I'd say, in Waterford. And the one thing I actually noticed today about, I don't read every paper. I'd be like everyone else. You get a free one in a hotel and you'll flick through it or whatever. And I did notice Cork are noticeably quieter than Waterford in the newspapers, and that could be clever.
Yeah, interesting though that the hype is a little bit less, because I don't know. You always get the impression that Waterford, it's almost a little bit like Mayo, that once you get a certain amount, it just goes a little bit mad. And then this year there's no Kilkenny and there's no Tip. Cork, have had a good season so far, but have come from nowhere untested. Galway, I think everybody wonders whether they'll have the bottle to go through, and it's like I'm surprised that it hasn't gone next step. And we're like, this is the year we're going to win the All-Ireland.
Yeah, well, maybe we've learned. It's that's a very valid point. How do the Mayo people go year after year after year to finals and replays and finals and replays? The Waterford, at least the Waterford fan, is like quarter-final or semi-final more often than not. It's not the final, but the phenomenal supporters are like the Waterford people. But there's definitely an onus there on the supporters to go to the matches and back the team.
I must say, Derek McGrath is one of the most engaging characters I've ever come across, just through media interviews down through the year. I'll never forget the first time I interviewed him. It was the 2014 relegation playoff against Dublin in Walsh Park. It didn't go well for Waterford that day. They had been 5 points to 0 up and really just fell apart. I think there was a red card for maybe Shane O'Sullivan.
That's right.
But afterwards in the dressing room, it's a bit of a dank sort of a dressing room, as I'm sure you know, just all concrete everywhere, old school. And he was just sitting there and he just seemed like a broken shell of a man. Where did it go wrong? And that's just the beauty of him. He does show you his character. And you would have played with him underage, you'd know him well. What's he like?
Yeah, would have played minor with Derek 1 year. Derek was, he would have played 3 years minor, I think, if not 4. He was centre forward on our minor team as a 15 or 16-year-old and was one of our best players.
Had hair back then?
Long blonde hair, yeah, kind of hidden by a yellow helmet. But he was very one-sided, I suppose, left-sided, but he was very effective, very strong, low to the ground type of thing, the Maradona thing, but very direct, could run at opponents, and was well able to score. And then he kind of went on then and played under 21, I can imagine, for 4 or 5 years, but didn't really kind of surface around the senior panel for a while, and there was competition for places there at the time.
It didn't fully happen for him.
Yeah, it didn't. And he played good club hurling for a long time, but kind of didn't kind of resurface at the intercounty level again. He went off to college, whatever. But as you say, from his interviews, everyone knows a lot about him. Even if you don't know him, you can read into what he says in his interviews, that he's quite a deep thinker of the game. Likes his poetry, very religious, and obviously taking time out of work to concentrate on trying to get this panel of players that he's nurtured for the last 4 or 5 seasons, over the line and win the ultimate prize. I suppose shows how committed he really is.
There was a lot of talk about and criticism locally when he cut a lot of the panel at the end of 2014 and went for the youth. From the outside looking in, I think most other counties would think this guy has got to be universally loved. What's the feeling for him now, especially when people are thinking he's given up his job for a little while to focus on it, and this could be his last year? I mean, that's how we'd read it from the outside.
Well, I think his agreement goes longer than this year. I think with the Waterford County Board, I suppose at the time when he cut, there was some established players and then some established panel members that he cut and brought in younger players. There was certainly eyebrows raised, and are they too young? And but the proof is in the pudding. He brought in, whether he cut players for a reason, that they were too old, too slow, not fat, whatever it was, not skillful enough. He obviously brought in people that he had identified that would play the way he wanted to play, and were they better than the players that he cut? Maybe not, but they were going to do what he wanted in his way of playing, and I think that took courage. And while it's not the most attractive style of hurling in the world, and hasn't been, they seem to really like this system. They play it a lot. They've key players in key positions that drive it, and I suppose there was criticism, and I would be in that boat of that they weren't attacking teams enough and maybe scoring enough goals, in particular 2-3 years ago, to ultimately get to where they wanted to go. But here they are, 2 games away from achieving what they want to achieve, and he stuck to his guns, changed it up when he had to, has kind of swapped the forwards around maybe a bit too much. To get any kind of fluency out of an inside forward, you would need a bit of confidence, and I think that might be an area that we might struggle going in the next game or 2, please God, is that do we have confident forwards that are able to, you saw what Joe Canning did in 10 minutes,
Yeah.
So, but he's the Waterford manager, he's won a league, and okay, the Munster Championship hasn't, but 3 semi-finals in a row. We're not like Mayo where we get to semi-finals every year, and but we do have to start converting these appearances at some stage.
So we'll talk a bit more about the semi-final itself coming on Sunday, but one of those players that has come through and helped bring the team on to the next level is Tadhg de Búrca. He looks like he's going to be suspended. He has the final protocol tomorrow at the DRA meeting to see if he can get off, for the helmet pull on Harry Keogh, who has
Did he pull a helmet? He did?
Yeah, so the idea was that, so they say.
Yeah. We should address what this is. It's a
so
player
Harry
missing
Keogh
an
got
hour
his
in the
way.
semi-final for this is a joke.
Yeah, it's not like 04 when Milan, he fairly done to Brian Murphy and he took his medicine. And
yeah, I suppose that back in 04 it was seen, it was quite obvious. A few of us heard it. So that was a 1-match ban, and probably lucky enough to be a 1-match ban, but John didn't pursue it down the legal way. At the time, it was probably easier to get off, Michael, as you were saying, it was probably easier to get off 10, 12 years ago than it is now, rightly or wrongly. I was at the Waterford Wexford match. I was sitting right across the other side of the field and followed the play, and when the referee went up and gave the red card, everyone. It was like,
Shock.
what's that for? So, and then, what, 2.5 weeks on, we're still no clearer what he actually did. There's no real, from what I'm aware of, there's no real conclusive evidence of a helmet pull. Is it the fourth official? Is it the linesman? Or is it the referee? The Wexford player complained to the linesman, and that seemed to be that. So Brian O'Mara, who I know well from Tipperary, was absolutely treated disgracefully
In 01,
in
yeah.
90. Was it 01 or 90?
The Galway one,
Yeah,
2001.
yeah. A linesman flagged and gave the referee kind of, I won't say false information, but kind of glorified it up to be something that it wasn't. And here was Brian O'Mara sitting on the sideline for the All-Ireland final. So, you know, it's, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow night. Hopefully Waterford have enough in their corner to appeal to the committee that, look, this should be overturned. I suppose Podge Collins got a game last year. Stephen Bennett got a game earlier this year when a co-commentator suggested that he might get a game, and all of a sudden he got a game.
Yeah.
So it's...
You've been on the Sunday game. Do you feel that you can prejudice these sort of situations and sort of get a ban for somebody, even if you don't want to, but just by highlighting the situation?
Well, there's Pat Spillane, to be fair, through the book at Diarmuid Connolly.
Yeah.
You know, that was I saw that night. I don't tend to watch highlights of the matches, but why are we talking about the Sunday game rather than the players? You know, that's kind of, I think the players are there to serve, you know, themselves and get what they can out of it and play well and achieve things, whereas commentators like myself and other people should only comment on what's good, not what they think or hope will happen. Donal O'Grady was asked apparently, and he said he'll definitely miss it. And you know, you got to remember that GA committees aren't straightforward, and if you back a committee into a corner, you know, sometimes it might be just no rhyme or reason behind it. But we'll see. Hopefully he'll. Hopefully they have enough behind him going there, and that they can say, look, this wasn't deliberate, and hopefully he'll be available.
And the DRA is an outside organisation that's separate, so it's a new.
Yeah,
a
and
new
it's generally
avenue.
technicalities you go after
Yeah,
here.
now
so
my problem with this is, it does seem that the reason he's having such a problem getting off is because it was a linesman's word, or as you said, fourth official, whoever it was, but there's no evidence to disagree with it. There's no clear-cut video evidence. But like, is it the Wexford player has said there was nothing in it? You know, nearly everybody at the ground has said it. It's clear cut, really, that, I mean, whatever happened, it was an accidental. There was no tug as such. You know what I mean?
yeah, my reading of it is that Harry
tangle
Cole intentionally got in his way,
Yeah.
and he went to just fire him away out of that. And
Exactly.
he just happened to get in his way. Now the linesman was looking at it like that, and as far as I'm sure the linesman got a half decent look at it. I wouldn't imagine there was any intent. I'd say it was just get out of my way.
But what I'm saying here is there's no real controversy here. Nobody thinks that Tadhg de Burkett did anything wrong. I'm sure even that linesman, whether it was by the letter of the law a red card offence or not, like, can we not have some kind of common sense that a very important player, and even just him personally, is going to miss an All-Ireland semi-final, or might miss an All-Ireland semi-final?
It's a devastating blow for him
it's
personally.
stupid.
Yeah, absolutely devastating.
Adrian Toohey might face the same thing for
And
Galway.
again,
from Sunday
mentioned
game
that
analysis.
being brought up on the Sunday game and on the live coverage as well, when that was a non-issue. He was behind him. He couldn't even see what he was reaching.
Right, so just a reminder to
Sorry.
everybody that you can win tickets for the All-Ireland semi-final between Cork and Waterford. So tag in the name of your friend, and we'll announce a winner before the end, just on Twitter and Facebook. Just we'll take a little break now, because we're going to have a short little video with Peter Flanagan, who is a hurley maker down in Waterford.
If you'd asked me when I was 10 years of age what I wanted to be, a hurley maker was it. The first hurl I made would have been for myself and my wife Patrice. I suppose, look, she was playing camogie for Waterford at the time, and I was just making a few hurleys for her. In 2006 then we just said we'd give it a go and try and make a business out of it full time, you know. So we did, and touch wood, it's going okay, thank God. Patrice would look after the sales and all that, along with my father over in the workshop. I have two little children as well, JJ and Katie, have come along over the last couple of years, and you know, please God, I'd like to, you know, pass on the craft and the tradition to them, to keep in the family and that, you know. So hopefully, look, they'll know how to make a hurley anyway, and after that, then they can find their own path in life. Probably the biggest buzz for me is the fact that you know, the hurleys are made in the back of the cow shed knocking duff, and when you see him then up in Thurles and Crow Park, like I get a wicked buzz off that. You know, you wouldn't be jumping up and down shouting it, but just you'd be sitting in the stand in Thurles or Crow Park, and inside you'd just be happy. You know what I mean? It's just it sort of makes all the hard work worthwhile. Like, the way I look at it is that they played hurling hundreds of years ago with an Ash hurley, and they're still playing with it. And thank God, look, they are, and that suits me down to the ground. I'll keep making them by hand, please God, as long as the shoulders hold up.
That was Peter Flanagan there. Again, if you want to win tickets for this Sunday's All-Ireland final, a semi-final in fact, between Cork and Waterford, just tag in your friend on Facebook and Twitter and we'll announce the winner at the end of the show. Just an interesting point, Peter Flanagan, the hurley maker we just saw, I spoke to him a couple of years ago and he was telling me that Austin Gleeson takes the biggest hurley, or the heaviest hurley with the biggest boss that he's ever seen. What sort of hurleys did you favour, and is that interesting to you? Like, does that explain Austin Gleeson?
Well, I from being involved last year with the 21s, I saw Austin's hurleys up close, and Peter's right. They're shovels, like the weighted. They're short, quite a big boss, I suppose. But I suppose the average hurleys have changed so much. I was only watching a brief clip of Tip and Galway from the 87 semi-final or 89 semi-final, whatever it was, and Éanna Ryan was taking a shot, and he must have been using a 36 or 7-inch hurley, and the swing was so long. And of course, you needed them at the time because the slitters were heavy and our rims and everything. You needed to get the big arc to hit it. But nowadays, like I'd say about 32.5-32-inch hurley, and even the lads being 6 foot and 6 foot 1 and 2, their hurleys are so short, you know, but they're so accurate now, and they're probably balanced better. And the bosses are definitely bigger, but you can see the amount of points they're scoring with them, even from out the field. That it's not an issue, but. Back in the day, I used to use, what did I use, a 35.25, and anything that, it didn't have to look that well as long as it felt well, and bit of balance, but I had the same hurley for 8 years, so I didn't really...
Really?
Yeah, well...
No clashing.
I didn't tackle anyone, so like...
Do you like that though? Sorry, just to interrupt, the like... Joe Canning trying to score a point from inside his own 45 on Sunday. I know he left it short, but like, is it a little bit too easy to score these days?
Well, I watched it at home, and I'd no doubt that he'd make the distances, whether he'd just keep it straight or not. But obviously, then he mishit it in some fashion. It is too easy to score from out the field. There's no question about it. You see the puck outs now on Sunday.
They were to the 21 there the other day.
Like, I mean, that's 130 yards, 140 yards. And the most impressive thing about the puck outs are how they can hit like a ball of leather or like head high for 70 yards without it deviating. Like, you know, there's no dimples on it, there's no aerodynamics involved in it. It's just a plastic thing in a coat of leather, and the way they're hitting it around, it's so skillful. And you know, the catching of it from 120 yards, to judge a ball coming, 4 or 5 lads going up at you and coming down with it, it's just incredible. And you know, I see it at home now in the club in Ballygunner and around the area. There is young lads going around with hurleys in their hands again, and they're just getting so much better, you know, this freestyle hurling and different little nicks and knacks and skills, and you can see it, you know, hurling is sexy again for foreseeable future anyway. And you know, it's brilliant, it's absolutely brilliant. Like, I mean, because I don't mean to be harping on, but when you compare it to what, you know, Mayo and Roscommon gave us on Monday, and Dublin and Monaghan, and
yeah,
you know,
Tyrone Armagh.
I think
it's all Muck really.
It's the only show in town really.
And Muck, because they weren't competitive, I'd say. Like, they are capable of producing decent games. Maybe not hurling-esque games. Yeah. But just we'll quickly touch on Galway Tipperary. Joe Canning with the last 5 scores. Tipperary, maybe they were only at 90% of what they ever were last year. And I think in a lot of ways, there's a lot of players who have left the Tipperary panel in the last year. So, I mean, maybe he's getting a little bit older, but Lar Corbett, you've got like Shane McGrath, James Woodlock, maybe 31 years of age. There's a few more players.
Yeah, like, I mean, sorry Shane, you don't want to mention it, but like your brother Paddy, when all the problem that they'd have in the full back line, like, I mean, there's no doubt he should be there.
I mean, he'd absolutely hate if I said that myself, but like,
I'm
fair point and all that.
Yeah.
But I just think that when it came down to it this year, and once the Barrett situation happened, and he hadn't shown confidence in Michael Cahill throughout the year, and there was different guys in and out, it really kind of showed that maybe that panel isn't as strong as he thought it was. And I think he'd surely regret not having all those players there.
Well, I suppose it was tips to lose. It was tips All Ireland to lose, wasn't it, in everyone's mind back in February and March. And it's a bit like 0-1 again. When Tip won the All-Ireland in 0-1, they were going to win 2, 3 or 4.
Same in 2010 again,
yeah. So at least they won the one, in fairness. But like I mean, from that team that beat Waterford in the Munster final like 14 months ago in Limerick, there's quite a few absentees, and I suppose they didn't seem to have the same dynamic this year, whether it be all the stuff we all heard of back in the towards the end
rumours.
of the league. Yeah, and surely that has a big bearing on guys, but they certainly didn't have the same speed or dynamic that they had last year. And I suppose if they'd gotten over Cork in the Munster Championship, maybe then it might have gelled and moved on. But when you kind of lose, when you're All Ireland champions, I would imagine, and you lose the first round of your provincial, it's like a dagger to the heart.
Yeah.
And they recovered fairly well, and they were, in fairness to them, they were only a point from a replay, a point from winning. So I wouldn't. It's not all doom and gloom really, but it's. I know Tip expect to win it every year, but that can't be done either.
Yeah, and I only bring up those experienced players, not because I think they could make the difference every day, but you look at the Dublin footballers and they bring in Dennis Bastick when they need him, or Bernard Brogan, or Paul Flynn is 30 now, so is Michael Darmacaulay, and it's just from that point of view, are you taking too much away at the one time? And but I suppose
Look
the story
at
is
what Brick is given Waterford,
and Brick,
even
for
this year,
example.
like
Yeah,
it just
once you hit 30, you seem to be up in the scrap heap with you.
Well, Michael is 34 now, isn't he? And like, I mean, if he gets to play in an Ireland final at 34, haven't contemplated retiring last year and the year before, to be phenomenal for him. But I suppose the one thing about hurling is there's no point bringing on a slower player. Maybe football, it can be relaxed, slow it down, keep the ball, keep possession. Whereas you see Sunday now, like the last 20 minutes, it'll be fresh legs or speed that'll carry the day.
So just with Galway there, I suppose putting the Tipperary hat on, a lot of it came down to a couple of what I would have said were cheap enough frees that Galway got coming out of defence. Adrian Toohey got one soft one, Pádraig Mannion got another soft one. Now, to be fair, Galway deserved to win.
He's like Superman here. You'll pull up and there'll be the Tip jersey.
But what did you make of Galway?
I was a bit afraid for Galway on Sunday looking at them, because I thought they hadn't had a competitive match since May, and they won that by 16 points against Tip. So
since last year.
Yeah, so they kind of got through, and here they were again in an All-Ireland semi-final, and if they didn't come out of the blocks running, they would be in trouble. And in fairness, they kind of stumbled for a bit, got their heads together, got their stuff together, and I thought they did well to win it, because they had to dig deep. Tipperary were kind of throwing everything at them. There was a couple of poor frees from both teams, I suppose, missed uncharacteristically. But I think I was delighted to see, like, the class of Canning in the end was absolutely incredible. But a draw could have been a fair result and go at it again. And I think Galway would have certainly improved for the replay. But I think they did very well to win that match at that intensity, not having played on that intensely for nearly 12 months. So I think they did well.
Okay, so we'll move on to Cork Waterford this Sunday. And again, if you want to win tickets to the game, comment on Facebook or Twitter with the name of the friend that you'd like to take along with you, and we'll announce it at the end of the show. So Cork Waterford, you've played in Croke Park, you've played in Semple Stadium, but I want to focus on the Croke Park games. 2007, you had a couple of games and then eventually got ambushed by Limerick in the semi-final. What's it going to be like for the players?
I think they're well used to it at this stage. I don't think there'll be any Waterford player making their debut or kind of their first appearance, whereas Cork will have 3 or 4 lads making their senior debut there.
In Croke Park, yeah.
It'll be a massive crowd. There'll be a massive Cork contingent there, like there was in the Munster final, where we were just saying they nearly outnumbered Clare 4-1, and
at least
was it? Yeah,
probably
and
more, I'd say.
I think the Cork crowd will be absolute. You'll see the hill will be nearly full with them. And it's that red jersey up on the hill,
red flares. Yeah,
the Barons and so on. But hopefully the Waterford people are there with our flags. But it's an intimidating place.
Why?
Things can go well for you. It's not a place you can hide. The pitch is definitely different from every other pitch. It's firmer. It drains your legs a bit more. Like Thurles is more a natural sod.
The ball kind of deadens when it hits.
It deadens in it, yeah, and it kind of weaves in the grass. Very few people might know that. If you pull on it, it'll weave in the grass. It's a wider pitch. The dimensions of it are kind of a little bit wider. It's maybe not as long as Thurles, but it's just a place you can really expose somebody, and it's a place you can really kind of get exposed yourself. And it doesn't take much, you know, there's a thin line between it. Shooting into the canal end can be a little bit off-putting with the stands and so on. And, you know, it's a place where definitely, the more you play there, the more you get used to it, obviously. But I think it's definitely, it's no advantage to either team to have the match there. Obviously, hopefully Waterford haven't been on the verge of beating Kilkenny last year there in the semi-final. We'll just go that bit further. And then again, you know, if we do happen to have a couple of point leads with a couple of minutes to go, you take it here now.
So Derek he mentioned that there was a long gap before he played Cork and Munster, and that he had gone they went for a training camp in Fota Island, and things had gone unbelievably well, and he thought the boys are hopping off the sod. But that for the last 10 days or 2 weeks that they kind of lent on that a little bit too much, and the game played in their head. And I suppose the likes of Austin Gleeson didn't really, he was one of many that was very flat on the day. That shouldn't be a problem this time, because they've gone the long route. They've beaten Offaly, they've beaten Kilkenny, and they've beaten Wexford.
Yeah.
So what do you expect out of the likes of Austin Gleeson, and should Cork man mark him?
Ooh. Well, you can. It's quite obvious that when you watch the match, you can see how far the ball is travelling when it is released, and a player can be left at times, you know, kind of no man's land. Midfield is now more or less go back to the half-back line or further and get it. You know, no puck out lands in midfield, no short puck out lands in midfield. So it's a really diversified massively. Yeah, Austin, I suppose, has struggled at times to. While his best has been phenomenal, I suppose it's the simple thing of maybe staying in a position that, or maybe the Roman role certainly didn't work against Cork the first day. I would think that it's gone out the window. What do I expect from him? You know, if he can just do his own job and not try to do anyone else's job, probably get on. If his teammates can find him more with the ball, get into better spaces. I think you want your best players on the ball as often as possible, and if that could happen with Austin, you know, then his talents will do the rest. But you know, it's other players have responsibility too to bring him into the game, and you know, obviously, will Cork man mark him? Depends where he goes. You know, if he goes back to his own half-back line or midfield, he's capable of scoring from midfield. So, you know,
where should he go? Because this has been my biggest bugbear for the last 2 years. Even in winning Hurler of the Year last year, I thought he did the most spectacular things in the championship, but I didn't think he was the best player, and I thought that's because you have 60 minutes of a game where he's not there. And I don't think it's always his fault at all, but I think it actually hurts Waterford that sometimes it can be the Austin Gleeson show and he does these things, and 10 minutes later we're still talking about what he's done, but the other team scored 3 points. Where can they get that out of him? Is it centre forward? Centre back?
If you saw him last year, which I'm sure you did a bit in the Under-21 Championship, he was phenomenal in the half-back line. He's probably a natural half-back as such. But, you know, you're cutting your cloth to the measure. You have Tyg de Burke, Philip Manny's there, Dara Fives, Kevin Moran can play half-back. So who can play centre forward? We don't have that many. Stephen Bennett can certainly play there. Morris could probably play there, Brick could play there. So
you need his pace up there as well.
So I suppose they're kind of, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul in certain aspects. I think there's no doubt in years to come you will see him probably further back the pitch. But I think for definitely the rest of the season anyway, he will be from midfield up. You know, he's phenomenal when he drives forward with the ball and everyone gets out of their seat. The scores he gets, you know, he goes up the sideline and you're nearly hoping he shoots for one reason, in case he scores, and then you're saying, don't shoot in case you put it wide. But, you know, those type of scores lift everybody.
Yeah.
And I take your point very well where, you know, there's parts of the matches where you're looking for him to kind of grab it. And but it's not easy, you know.
He's very young as well.
He's only 22, you know. He's only 22 there lately. So it's a learning curve for him too. And I think patience is going to be a massive part for him on Sunday, where if he can't get frustrated if the same things are happening, that the ball isn't coming for him, or he goes to catch it and he misses it, or he's blocked or whatever. So I think patience is going to be massive for him. But bear in mind, you know, when you're playing centre forward in a team that's pushed back the field, space is really, it ain't there, you know. So
who's the man marker that you're thinking of?
I'm not sure the Cork will, because I think they'll want to have their two banks of three, or maybe they'll have to play someone spare, and maybe it'll be a case of, you know, trying to pick out the likes of a Damien Cahalane from the puck outs and sort of punish you that way again. But
I think Waterford will be quite happy to leave Nash give the ball to Damien Cahalane, because I remember at the league game back in February down in Parky Ring, Nash didn't want to give it to him. He just wanted to show off his striking skills. But you know, I think Waterford might be quite happy if they force Nash to give it out to Cahalane every time.
And if I was Waterford, though, I'd be looking to see how would Mark Coleman feel about Austin Gleeson going over onto him, his first All-Ireland semi-finals. Exceptional hurler, obviously, but how would he feel about that and a few high puck outs on top of the two of them? Maybe put Brick over on him and see, well, is Coleman's pace and like...
Coleman's a fine player. I saw him in the Munster 21 final last week, and you know, he's fast. He's very fast going forward, and he's knacky, and he's able to score line balls from the middle. He's phenomenal. He's a very good player. But then again, it's his first day in Croke Park. You know, the match power against his speed maybe, and try holding back the pitch a bit. So, but that's part of the intrigue of it, isn't it? It's kind of, yeah.
So a question I wanted to get to was you relating to your Ballygunner clubmates that are going to be playing here. We've got Stephen O'Keefe in goals, Philip Mahoney, Pádraig Mahoney, and
Barry Coughlin,
full-back. So just specifically with Pádraig Mahoney, last year he had that free to level it against Kilkenny and Thurles, and it was interesting playing Kilkenny. This year he was being brought off because he was hobbling off right before Morris had the free to win it, and it went extra time. Obviously he won. But tell us about Pádraig and even how you were feeling when you saw him hit that free last year, which agonisingly was just tipped away by Murphy.
Yeah, like Pádraig has, he's come back fabulous from a very bad broken leg. This time 2 years ago, maybe. And you know, there was serious worry that maybe, you know, he would take time to come back, and there was never doubt he'd come back because he's very determined. But he came back brilliantly, and even you'll be surprised how fast he came back, and should he be back training. You know, he's turned himself into a dead ball specialist where he's lethal from frees, has a lovely style, has a lovely trajectory. The one thing about I found myself, and the further you go back the field, obviously your striking changes, or you can't hit it low, and you know, the 50, 60 yards one. So you mightn't practice them as much, but definitely the one in Thurles last year, I'd say he was definitely concentrating so much on keeping it straight that he forgot to hit it. And like, I mean, that's what it was, well within his compass to reach the goal from 64 or 5 metres, but he was probably concentrated on it to steer it so straight that he forgot to hit it. I did it myself a couple of times in Thurles. It's not the easiest place to take a last minute free or to miss one either, but and you feel so alone after it. You feel so you're down in your despair, and you know, I'm sure the teammates, I remember I texted him straight after it and that, but his reply was like, we'll get him next year, which was, you know, determined and don't dwell on it. Yeah, absolutely, and he did. And then again, of course, this year then time up, and the free was awarded just in front of the tunnel there in Park.
Derek said he was thinking of bringing him straight back on just to take it.
And had they might have had a substitute, but you know, it's like a field goal situation in American football. But whenever about Pádraig going off, I thought Austin was going to take it because Morris was only after coming on.
Yeah.
And I thought Morris was the wrong fella for this. Gleeson, you know, can take a free from Joe Canning range, so I thought he was the guy to hit it. Patrick Hearn took frees last year for the under 21 winning team and was flawless. So, but I was surprised to see Morris only after coming on the pitch take it. But it was a bit unlucky just to take off your free taker a split second before that. But
can I ask a little bit about that match actually, because I don't know, I nearly had a meltdown watching that match because that was the worst I've ever seen Kilkenny play. And in fairness, Waterford did the job when they had to in extra time. But the last 10-15 minutes would make me really, of normal time, would make me really worry about Waterford, in that it was like as if they were thinking about the history. They were thinking about how long is it since we've beaten Kilkenny, and that could be just me projecting as the, you know, a game changing. But that's how it felt watching it.
Oh, there's no doubt. When Shane Bennett got the goal, I thought, this is it. We'll win by 8 to 12 points. Yeah. I thought, and with Kilkenny had only scored 1-9 after 58 minutes or something. You couldn't see them coming back. Couldn't. But Killian Buckley was just kind of left on his own, and ball after ball after ball, he rained down on top of the Waterford defence. And of course we started a bunch, and they got the one break then when Colin Fennelly literally rugby union style, nearly rugby league style attacks the goal, and it broke to someone and they got it in, and that was it, panic stations.
Yeah.
And if there was 1 minute extra on that clock, I think Kilkenny were the only team winning it. I thank God we got the break, settled down.
And we're the much better team.
Much better team,
And
and
that's the
I'm sure Derek and Dan and the lads said it, look, open up, use your space, use your hurling, you know, take them on, because Kilkenny were out on their feet. And I would agree with you, like they didn't play well even that night. You know, some of their warriors from years gone by, Richie, TJ and Colin Fennelly were just, it just wasn't their year this year, you know. But you know, definitely
Can they learn from
the memories of last year were.
We'll come to your prediction in a second and why, but just quickly, I think everyone would be quite upset if I didn't bring up that free you scored, the dipping free back in 2004 when Milan had been sent off, that crucial goal. But that, like, your memories of that again, and did you absolutely hate Cork at the time?
No, I never. I worked in Cork. I covered Fermoy and Mallow, and you know, I've a lot of good friends from Cork, and I love their attitude and their wit. And no, I admired a lot of their players, still do. Like, I mean, okay, there's the odd one that would get under your skin and that. But you know, we used to have good banter on the pitch, and you know, of course, we used to give as good as we got, and John and Dan and Owen Kelly, like that, and the laugh. You know, it was funny at times, because fellas can say that on the pitch, and it sounds stupid, but they think it's funny or is answering your back. But no, you know, Cork. That Cork team was, you know, Kilkenny went on to win 5 in a row, but that Cork team were very unlucky not to do 3 in a row. And like, here were we beating them every second time we played them, and they were going for 3 in a row all Ireland's, and like, it was a bit, what do we have to do? And you know, John got sent off then against them, and Kilkenny beat us in the semi-final in 2004. Yeah, 2003 was a game I thought we could have won the Munster final. They beat us by 4 points. The following Saturday, then Wexford clip us down in Nolan Park. So it was just kind of, we had an excuse every year if that sounds weird. But no, like, when you look at players like Ben O'Connor and Joe Dean and Brian Corcoran and, you know, Niall McCarthy, even though, you know, his shooting wasn't great, but the work he did, and he used to mark Ken every match and put it up to them, and you know, it was a real kind of man-on-man kind of battle. And, you know, Dan and Sean Og had their battles, and Brick and Ronan Kern, and you know, Brian Murphy in Milan, and so on. So it was, you know, it were just good matches, and I suppose the way both teams played, and they wanted to kind of express, you know, and there was a certain belief in that Cork team after the strike that they were better, and they were, you know, they deserved it, and they went through hell in the strike, and they came out the other side, and they kind of, not that they had a right, but they definitely had a strong desire, and you know, they were organised down to a T with warm-ups and all this kind of stuff, whereas we rocked in and kind of, you'd be looking for a spare shorts in the dressing room or a pair of socks or something, and have you got a spare hurley? I don't know. And, you know, this
you had the same one for
you
8 years.
Yeah, well, I didn't bring a spare. Well, I think someone brought one, but you know, that type of thing. So I think the two styles kind of clashed, and they served up great matches and great moments, and you know, obviously the goal for me was one of those moments, and Ken's catch later on, and James Murray's flick off Fraggy Murphy was just about to score, and you know, I think that's often overlooked as a massive turning point. And like, Cork had a strong wind with them that day, 14 against 15, and I think for the 10 minutes after John went off, they said, right, well, that's kind of it, and they started shooting from everywhere, and all of a sudden they weren't landing, and we got back into the game with the we weren't gone out of the game by any means. We were 2 points down or something, but I felt if we kind of got to 3 or more points, I think we would have struggled. So I suppose that goal helped us massively, and we played well after it though. A lot of fellas played well after it.
You did that the whole time though. I was saying to Shane beforehand, my thing was I'd be at a match and I'd be always saying to the person beside me now, watch out for Flynn, he's going to go for goal, he's going to go for, and I'd be the one that I'd forget to watch and wouldn't be looking at my phone or something that you'd hit in or whatever. How far was too far out, or what would you look for? Would you look for a keeper not paying attention, or?
Well, if there was 2 on the goal for starters, so that's half a chance.
This would be 40 yards out though.
Yeah, but if you had someone in their way, they wouldn't be expecting it. You know, they should have stopped that. There's no question about it. Like, you know, talking to them after, they knew the threat was there, type of thing. But they should have stopped it. I tried it in a league game against Tip a few years before, and it hit the crossbar. And I remember Nicky English saying, "Did you mean that?" And I said, "No." But I used to practice it a bit. A club goalie, Ray, is getting great praise for this, Ray Whitty. But we used to practice it a bit. But a bit like the free kicks in soccer, the further you are out from the goal, the better chance you have of getting it up and down, or whatever. So, there's no. That was ideal, obviously, 30, 35 yards. So, it was grand. It's something that we had a good laugh about after. So it was great.
And just quickly, who do you think is going to win the game and why?
9-1 isn't a bad bet for the draw now. Obviously, my heart and head says Waterford. I think Waterford, it's theirs. If they play well, I think it's well within their compass. A lot of people I meet through work, travelling, nearly every neutral says to me Cork. Cork are fast, they have good forwards, they have a very fast forward line. We will probably be trying to protect more than attack. So it's a fascinating kind of clash. I think Waterford will have to bring on a bit of pace in the closing quarter, and hopefully that bit of pace. You have Brian O'Halloran, Morris, Patrick Curran, Colin Dunford and Stephen Bennett, who all in their own right could be playing from the start. So I think it's going to take Waterford 18 to 19 players to win, but I do fancy him to win.
And just finally, before we finish, do you miss hurling yourself? I think the 08 final was your last inter-county game. It didn't go great against Kilkenny, although I believe you got a few scores. And, so I recall. You gave up club hurling shortly after. Do you miss it?
No, I played. We got to a Munster Club final in 09 with Ballygunner. Who beat us? Newtown Chandram. Our old foes beat us, and I had enough. I was 34 and a bit, nearly going 35, and I'd given it as much as I could. I wasn't going to get any faster or fitter, and I just decided, I wasn't going to be the guy who gets hooked and blocked the whole time and get frustrated and kind of be half remembered for hitting a young lad rather than, for playing for Waterford, whatever. So I had enough. I missed the crack and the laugh you used to have, particularly with the Waterford lads like Kelly and Milan and Dan and that, and they were great days. But I'm involved with the coaching a few teams now as well, and the under 9s in the club and the Waterford 21 team last year and this year. So the old dressing room was good crack as well. So I think that's it. If the likes of us who played 10, 12 years ago can give anything back to the younger generation from 14 to minor or whatever and help them out a bit, that'd be great. So I look forward to getting involved maybe with an underage Waterford team at some stage. Brilliant,
great stuff. So just to announce that the winner of the 2 tickets for Sunday is John Fitzpatrick. So I'd like to thank Paul for this evening. That was brilliant. Mick McCarthy, who's the editor of Balls.ie, and myself, Shane Stapleton. Thanks very much. We'll chat to you again.